Okay, let's dive in. You know how language feels so solid? Like the words we use are just there.
Yeah, like they're set in stone.
Right. But when you look closer, it's actually this incredibly dynamic, constantly shifting thing, always evolving.
It absolutely is. Think of language less like a monument and more like a living river. It flows, it adapts.
And a huge part of that flow is borrowing words,
Yeah,
right, from other languages.
exactly. It's one of the most powerful forces shaping it. It's not some rare occurrence. It's fundamental, a key engine of change.
And that engine is what we're digging into today, how words, making the journey from other languages have really shaped English, maybe more than you realize.
We've got a great academic article here that explores this whole phenomenon.
So our mission today isn't just saying English borrows words. That's obvious.
Right, we want to go deeper, unpack why languages even feel the need to borrow in the first place.
And look at the different ways they do it, because it's not just one simple process.
No, there are surprising variations. And then how those words get adapted, sort of twisted to fit the new language.
And what does all that tell us? About history, culture.
Globalization. Especially through the lens of English, which has played such a unique role.
It really shows how connected we are, and well, always have been.
It definitely does.
So let's start basic. What exactly are we talking about with borrowed words or loan words?
Okay, so at its core, a loan word is basically a word or maybe a phrase that's taken from one language.
The donor language.
Right, the donor language.
Yeah.
And it's brought into another, the borrowing language.
Right.
But crucially, it usually undergoes some adaptation. It has to fit in,
It can't just be dropped in cold. And this isn't new, right? It's ancient.
Oh, absolutely. The drivers are woven right into human history. You've got trade routes opening up, wars, empires expanding.
Big historical shifts, basically.
Yeah, major international changes. And today, of course, it's accelerated by, well, everything. Technology, science, global networks.
So each borrowed word is like a tiny time capsule?
In a way, yeah. It carries a little story, a fragment of that history or cultural exchange.
Like linguistic evidence.
Exactly. Linguistic artifacts. Every single loan word proves that two different groups of speakers interacted somehow, somewhere. Could be commerce, conflict, just sharing ideas.
And it's not just about history. Borrowing actually does something for the language itself, right? It's functional.
Oh, hugely functional. It's a massive vocabulary enricher. It lets a language quickly grab a word for a concept or an object it didn't have a term for.
Like a shortcut to naming new stuff.
Precisely. It expands the language's expressive power, its ability to describe the world, new tech, abstract thoughts.
Okay, so it's valuable.
Yeah.
But you said it's not just one simple process. The article breaks it down.
Right. It lays out different types of borrowing. It's helpful to see the nuance in how words actually make the jump.
Okay, let's hear them. What's the first type?
The most straightforward is what we call direct loan words. These are words basically lifted from the donor language and plugged into the borrowing language with very little change.
They just take the word as is, more or less.
Pretty much. The article gives examples like bungalow, which came into English from an Indian language for a specific house type,
Okay, I know bungalow.
or ottoman from Turkish, hurricane from Spanish. You can often still kind of hear the original language in them.
Got it. So the word itself travels mostly intact. What's another way?
Next up, we have calque, sometimes called translation loanwords. This is fascinating. You don't borrow the word itself.
But the idea...
Exactly. You borrow the concept or the structure of a phrase, and then you translate each bit using words already in your own language.
Oh, like translating an idiom literally.
That's a great way to put it. The source uses flea market. We didn't borrow the French words marché aux puces,
Right.
but we took the concept market of fleas and translated it directly into English as flea market.
Huh. I never thought about that origin.
Another good one is masterpiece. It's a direct translation of the Italian capolavoro.
Meaning best work or something.
Yeah, chief work.
Yeah.
So the language borrows the whole way of thinking about it and just uses its own words to build it.
That's really interesting. It's borrowing concepts, not just sounds. Okay, what about words we already have, but they get a new job?
Ah, that's the third type. Semantic loan words. Here, a word already exists in English, let's say, but it picks up a new meaning.
Because a word in another language had both meanings.
Often, yes, or just through cultural influence. The word book is a great example.
Right. It used to just be the paper thing.
Exactly. Physical object. But now, you book a flight, book a table. That meaning of to reserve was added.
Or mouse. That's always seems so random for the computer thing.
It is, isn't it? The animal mouse was always there in English. But the word mouse also took on the meaning of the computer device, probably because of the shape, the tail, influenced by how other languages might have termed early versions.
So it's like recycling an old word for a new invention.
A linguistic shortcut, yeah. Repurposing. Keeps the word form, adds a whole new meaning.
Okay, makes sense. What's the last type?
These are hybrid loanwords. And they're kind of a mix and match situation. You take a borrowed word or root,
From the donor language.
right, and you combine it with bits and pieces from your own language, maybe grammatical endings, or just another whole word from the borrowing language.
So part foreign, part native.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Like sushi bars. Sushi's Japanese, obviously. Bar is English. Put them together, you get a specific place.
Okay, yeah.
Or kindergarten. Kinder is German for children. We stuck the English word garden onto it. Create something new, built from borrowed and native parts.
It sounds like this borrowing thing isn't just a one-off event. The word has to, like, settle in, adapt.
That's a crucial point. Just chucking a foreign word into a language doesn't always work long term. Languages have rules, sounds, grammar. They resist sometimes.
So the borrowed word has to conform.
It generally has to integrate, yeah. And there are two main ways it adapts, phonetic adaptation and morphological adaptation.
Phonetic. That's the sounds, how it's pronounced.
Exactly. When a word jumps languages, its pronunciation often shifts to fit the new language's sound system. Think about tsunami from Japanese.
Right. We don't really say that sound at the start of words much in English.
We don't. So we tend to drop the T and say something closer to tsunami. Sounding. There are French words like garage or buffet. English speakers tweak the pronunciation to make it sound more English, like we say BFT for buffet. The sounds that feel foreign get smoothed out.
Your mouth just wants to say it the way it's used to saying things. Makes sense. What about morphological adaptation?
Morphology is about the word's form, how it changes to fit the grammar rules of the new language.
Like plurals and stuff?
Yeah, plurals.
Yeah.
Or how a word might change its function, like becoming a verb when it was only a noun before.
Like progress. Didn't that used to be just a noun?
The source note's exactly that. In Latin, progressus was a noun. English borrowed it, and we started using it as both a noun, make progress, and a verb, to progress. Or the Spanish word siesta. We borrow it, and then we make it plural, the English way. Siestas.
And Latin medium becoming media for the plural, which is kind of Latin, but we use it in English grammar structures?
Perfect example, and a really modern one is the noun email. As soon as it arrived, it instantly became a verb too, to email someone.
Yeah, that happened fast.
It shows how flexible English grammar can be in absorbing new things and making them work grammatically.
So the sound changes, the form changes, and the article also says the meaning itself can keep changing even after the word is borrowed.
Yes, that's called semantic shift. A borrowed word doesn't just land and stay static. Over time, its meaning can expand or contract or pick up totally new senses. It can become polysemous.
What?
Polysemous. Just means having multiple meanings.
Ah, okay. So how does the meaning usually shift?
Well, one common direction is broadening, or generalization. This is where a word that started off with a really specific meaning gets used for a much wider concept.
Like the word bird. Wasn't that more specific once?
The source mentions that, yeah. Bird apparently used to mean mainly smaller fowl. Now, of course, it's any feathered winged creature or holiday. Originally just religious holy days, now it covers weekends, public holidays, any time off work, really.
Its meaning got way bigger.
And business. It used to be just your specific work or job. Now it means the whole world of economic activity.
Okay, so meanings can get broader. What's the flip side?
That would be narrowing of meaning. A word that started out general becomes more specific over time. The article uses vegetables.
How is that broader?
Apparently it once meant all plants. Now it specifically means the edible ones we cultivate for food.
Huh, okay. And disease.
That used to mean any kind of discomfort or lack of ease. Now it's narrowed down to specifically mean medical problems, illnesses.
So these shifts show the language adapting to how people actually use it, what they need to talk about.
Exactly. It reflects the changing needs and focus of the speakers.
This whole journey of words, it feels like the story of English itself. The article traces this history, right? Showing how much borrowing has shaped the language over time.
It's pretty credible when you lay it out. English wasn't born in a vacuum. Even way back in the pre-Old English period, the Germanic tribes coming to Britain were already borrowing.
Who?
From other West Germanic groups, and crucially from Latin, because of the Roman Empire's influence nearby. Early words like anchor, buter, butter.
Okay, then Old English, say 600 to 1100 AD.
Right. The Anglo-Saxons settle, English starts forming, then you get a huge wave of borrowing with Christianity's arrival.
All from Latin.
Religious terms, loads of them, but also scientific terms, everyday words that came with the missionaries and texts. Latin words like circle, cest, chest. Latin was the source for learned vocabulary for ages.
Fast forward quite a bit, early modern English, 1500, 1650, the Renaissance period.
Yeah, an absolute explosion of vocabulary then. There was this renewed interest in classical Latin and Greek, so words poured in. From Latin, you get things like area, insane, orbit. From Greek, critic, history, parasite.
And this is also when exploration takes off, right?
Exactly. Colonial expansion.
Yeah.
English speakers start bumping into languages all over the Americas, Africa, Asia. They needed words for all the new things they encountered.
Plants, animals, foods, concepts.
Right, so they borrowed them. English became incredibly absorbent, really flexible and expansive during this time.
And then modern English, say 1650 to now.
This is where English really becomes a global language. Think colonialism, the Industrial Revolution, mass migrations.
So even more contact with other languages.
Tons more. Words just flooded in from everywhere. Saloon from French, piano from Italian, brandy from Dutch. The whole list is practically endless.
But then something shifts, doesn't it? The article points this out. English starts giving words back.
That's a huge turning point. As English became the dominant language for international trade, science, technology, pop culture, it went from being mainly a borrower to also being a major donor language.
Exporting words instead of just importing.
Precisely. Think about words like computer, internet, smartphone, jeans, weekend. These are English words that have been adopted by languages all over the planet.
So the flow reversed, or at least became two-way. And the article says new words pop up constantly, and whether they stick around depends on culture, economics, messy stuff.
Which leads us right to today. The late 20th century and onwards has seen this massive, maybe unprecedented surge of borrowing from English into other languages.
You can see why, though. English is the language of so much global stuff now. Business, science, the internet.
Entertainment, education.
Yeah.
Its status as the modern world's lingua franca is pretty undeniable.
But this sparks a debate, right? Is this good or bad?
It does. It's a really interesting, sometimes quite heated discussion. Is this flood of English words just natural linguistic evolution enriching other languages?
Or is it a threat? Could it, damage national languages?
That's the concern some people have. Could it erode cultural identity?
There's also many factors involved.
Definitely. The source mentions it's all tied up with social trends, economics, cultural influence, government language policies, how fast globalization is happening, technology.
And why English specifically?
Well, the political and economic clout of the U.S. has been a big factor. Plus, it's widely used in international relations. And sometimes, let's be honest, English words just seem fashionable as a prestige element.
All of this just hammers home that deep link between language and culture.
Absolutely. They're inseparable. Cultures interact, and language reflects that interaction, absorbs it. Borrowed words are like the footprints of those interactions.
It's no wonder people find this stuff fascinating. You don't need to be a linguist to notice it happening.
Right. The article uses the word taco as an example, borrowed from Mexican Spanish.
Yeah. How does that show it?
Well, it gets assimilated differently in different places. Maybe first it's common just in border areas, then it becomes a national thing in the U.S., and now it's pretty international. It shows how a word's journey can happen on local, national,